Okay, so I go back to my cell and I realize that this guy is the first one I've ever spoke to at length. He ain't playing with a full deck. And I got to learn to control, first of all, laughing at the guy could get me killed, and try and, even if I don't understand completely what it says, at least pretend like I do, because he certainly doesn't like you saying your English is no good. Later that day, or maybe the next day, guard opens the door. I stand up, give him my little bow, and he gives me a new signal. No idea what that means. That means roll up your stuff. You're leaving. So what I had as my personal possession was, which I haven't mentioned, I had one blanket, which I had never put over me because it was hot, but I used as a pillow, and a very thin little bamboo mat that you see in a lot of Asian countries, which if you roll, it was about 6 feet long and 2.5, 3 feet wide. And if you rolled in a tight ball, it wouldn't be, so it was very thin. That was your kind of your mattress that went on top of the plank bed that your bunk. So, of course, I have a broken arm and a sling and I can't do it. So the guard comes in and he rolls up the mat and says, that's how you do it. He rolls the blanket, he puts in a square and puts I have to put on my long shirt, my long pants, because obviously I'm going somewhere. Puts all that under my arm. He carries my teapot for me, leaves my bucket, my bow, and I follow him out the door. And for the second time, I'm out of my cell now, so I go along the front of it, recounting on my left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cells, so I know there's 6 in that building. And I go across the cell and go over here and pass, and I can hear clanking and noises, but I don't see anybody because there's bamboo mats everywhere. So I go 150 yards maybe, and this guy opens up a door, and the door goes into a hallway of another building, and I can see off to the right there's a couple of cell doors, and at the end of this hallway to the left there's one more. And he opens the door and points in there. He walks in, puts my teapot on the single bed, and I go from this luxurious 3-bunk first-class hotel room cell to a dungeon. I didn't know it at the time, but I've been moved from the cell block we called the stable to the office, and I was in cell 4 of the office, which was, the bunk was that wide and 2 feet, so let's say 5.5, 6 feet wide and 8 feet long, and that was it. There was a window up to the right, but the window was matted over so light came through, but you couldn't see out. And another bow in the corner. So I put my stuff down there. Again, the guard helps me tie up my mosquito net because my right arm is useless. And I sit down and, Jesus, I'm depressed. Look, oh my God, this is, I'm in a dungeon. A little tiny. So I sit down on my bed and bemoan my existence. And I haven't been there 5 minutes. And on the wall, I hear a very distinctive tap, 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 which everybody in America knows is shave and a haircut. And the answer is 2 bits. Well, I was instructed not to make any noise. And one of the rules of do not tap on the wall, one of the camp rules. So I said, well, I'm too smart for that. There's some Vietnamese guard over there tapping to see if I'll tap back. So like a good little prisoner, I didn't do anything. So I spend the day there, nothing else happens, and whoever's next door is tap, 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 a lot. And I'm wondering, what the hell could that be? So maybe that night, maybe the next day, I don't know, the guy goes tap, 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 tap. I go tap, tap, and all of a sudden he's off and erase, tap, 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 tap. No idea what all this means. I said, well, either that is a guard trying to get me in trouble, or some poor guy's been here so long he's totally lost his mind. He's never in my mind did I think this guy's trying to tap in a code. Day goes by, tap, 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 tap. Week goes by, and anyway, I had lost track of days, but it turned out it was a Sunday. And I hear this boom, thump on the wall. And then it goes toward the front of my cell. Boom. It's moving that way, and to me it's obviously come this way. And at the very front of the cell where the door was, there was a little window, but there was no way to look out. It was covered on the outside, it had bars and a thick bamboo mat, so you couldn't see through it, but you could hear through it. So I follow this thump, thump, thump up to the front, and I get up there, and I hear the stage whisper voice, "Hey, you, new guy." I said, "Who, me?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Listen, I'm trying to teach you the tap code." I said, "What?" He says, "The tap code. Listen to me. There's 25 letters in the English language. There's 26 letters in the English language. In this code, there's no K. Use C for K. The first tap's the line, the second tap's the letter in the line." And then I hear, I'm not the only one. Guards come, I hear guards shouting. I go back and sit down in my bed like a good little boy, and I hear this other guy's cell door clang open like that, and I hear them whack, slap, bang. They're slapping the shit out of this guy. So I sit in the bed, the code, Jesus, the code. This guy's been trying to send me the code, so I try to remember what he said. I remember everything, but the most important thing, there's 25 letters, there's no K, use C for K. But I remember vividly the first lines, the first tap's the line, the second tap's the letter in the line. There's 5 lines. So I figured, well, there's got to be A, B, C, D, E, 5 lines, but I figured there'd be one less, 6, for the Z. So later, he tap, 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 tap. I go, tap, tap, and he sends me a word, a letter, H. Tap, tap, tap. He's doing it very slow because he obviously, so tap, tap, second line, tap, 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 third letter, which is H. And then he goes to the O, but the O comes out to me, something wrong because I forgot there's no K. So I just go, ka, 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 ka. I don't get it. A week goes by. Boom, boom. I follow the tap up there. He said, "New guy. There's 5 lines of 5 letters. No K. Use C for K." So anyway, not a sound for it. Anyway, a couple of days later, tap, 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 H. Tap, 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 O, 5-2, W. So slowly I start getting it. And of course, this guy had nothing to do. He was in solitary confinement too, so his whole job for a month or 2 weeks was to teach me the code. And it doesn't take long, because if you're sitting on your butt for 24 hours a day with absolutely nothing going, you can spend a lot of time thinking about that tap code, which I did 23 hours. And I would send it to myself. I would tap on my finger, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th line, 5th letter Z, right? So within a week or so, I'm tapping pretty good. And the first thing he told me his name. I am Captain Fred Cherry, F-105, Tak Lee. And I'm First Lieutenant Spice. No K, right? You see, again. So this guy, Fred Cherry, thought my name was Spice. So he says, what's your real name? I said, John. He said, good. I didn't think anybody would name anybody Spice. I said, not Spice, Spike. You know, finally, K, the K, you see for K. So, Fred Cherry taught me the tap code and got his ass kicked a couple of times doing it because the guards heard him whispering to me, and sometimes they would put their ears and they'd hear tapping. But Fred was a good friend until the day he died. I never saw Fred until a year later, and I was so shocked when I finally saw him. He was black as the ace of spades. Never told me that. So Fred was the only black fighter pilot in the Hanoi in the prison system until 67 or 68. Another black guy got captured. Anyway, Fred was a good guy. So, how long am I in cell 4 of the barn? I can't tell you. You know, the days were a blur, but let's say six weeks. Bang, the door opens. I thought I was going up to see the medics again, but this time the guy gave me the roll up your stuff signal. And I went back to the headquarters, and the door opens, and there's another guy sitting there an interrogator I've never met, and he had a white birthmark. You've seen people with white things in their hair. He had that on the side of his face. So he wasn't black, but dark brown, but it was very obvious. And guess what other prisoners nicknamed him? Spot. So, Spot, I bowed, and he talked to me. How are you, Nasmyth? I said, very good. Sir. Everything is sir. You can't call him anything but sir, or you'll get the guard behind you, whack you. Very good, sir. He says, you hear many noises in the camp. Yes, sir. We have many new prisoners. We need your room. So today, since you show the good attitude, you move in with some of your fellow Americans. But remember, no talking, no communicating, no tapping on the wall. I'm thinking, yes, sir, whatever he said. So I picked up my belongings, and somebody carried my teapot, and I walked to a totally different cell block, which I had never been to before, which I later learned was the pigsty. Opened the cell door of number 4 pigsty, and there's 2 guys in there. One of them's got a giant cast on one of his legs. Got a broken leg, obviously. The other guy comes to the door, grabs my goodies, and there's 3 plank beds. I take the empty one, the middle one. Everybody stands there. Well, the guy on the bed with the broken leg, he can't get up and bow, but he bows sitting down, and me and the other guy bow together, and the guard leaves. And, you know, first thing I say, God, I was, no talking, whisper. So they don't want any talking, because if they can hear you, they figure other guys in other cells can hear you. So anyway, I find out these 2 guys named John Blevins, John Wendell, both of them were F-105 pilot, blah, blah, blah. I find out everything about them in about 2 minutes, and Blevins got a broken leg, and Wendell didn't have not a scratch on him. He ejected, but he was fine. They both had learned the code. One of them knew the code from the Boy Scouts. Didn't even know it was. I was a Boy Scout. But anyway, they both tap in. They tell me who's on the cell beside us on either side and who all's in the cell block. And there's 68 guys in the camp all around, and the list of their names. And, you know, they just had a reams of information that I had couldn't even dream of. They knew all the cell blocks, which name was, and I described where I was. Oh yeah, you were over there in the end, the stable we call that. That's where and everything's got a name. There's the barn over here. We used to be a barn. There's the garage used to be a place for parking cars, and the pool hall. There's a swimming pool over there. Really? Oh, it's full of it's full of old film and stuff, because this used to be a film studio, and they threw all the old film in. The swimming pool was full of, you know, old 35 millimeter films. That this place used to be the Gatland Film Studio. You know, they knew a lot of stuff I didn't know. So we weren't, of course, we're whispering, whisper, whisper, whisper. And so I learned a lot of stuff in the first few days. And so my first experience of tapping to the guys in the next cell, we tapped and nobody answered. We'd heard some noises, so they had taken the prisoners in that cell out, and a couple of days later we heard somebody else move in there. And so then we had a little spy hole out. There was a kind of a window that'd be about chest high, and then would be maybe up to a couple of feet above your head, but it was covered with a bamboo mat. But Wendell, the guy who wasn't injured, had taken a small piece of bamboo and made a little spy hole where his eye, and it was much higher than, all the Vietnamese were shorter. So he took me up there, and you stand there and you can spy out, and you can see a little area right in front, like 4 feet, and the farther out you can see. Like there was a guard standing with a gun. Holy shit, there's a guard with a gun. Yeah, they don't worry, it's not loaded. They don't trust him with bullets. And then if you look down, you can see just the edge of a table, which was another door on sawhorses. And that, he said, right below our window is where they bring the food. And then when they open the cells to come and get the food, you get a glimpse of each guy. And so, you know, it's amazing all the stuff that was going on in this joint I knew nothing about, because I'd been over in a couple of corner cells in solitary. So anyway, time goes by, and you know, I'm learning to eat the garbage they fed us, but you know, it's not many calories in a bowl of boiled cabbage with 7 leaves in it, and this crappy 4th grade rice they gave you. So I was soon packing everything they gave me down, because I was getting skinny. I mean, I was down to maybe 135 pounds at that time, and everybody was skinny. The little guy with the broken leg, God, he was rotting away to nothing. So the routine was bang, 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 the guy banging on the artillery show, 5 o'clock, wake up. Now that I was in the cell and I had a helper, you get up, you take your mosquito net down, fold it up, put it over there. You don't leave it hanging like I always had, and they always let me because I couldn't do it. Anyway, Wendell took the nets down, put them over, put our little blanket in a square and sat out there. You were supposed to look neat and proper. That was another one of the camp. Keep the cell neat and proper. And walk. Wendell was a great walker. He walked 5.5 steps from one in front of the little beds. It was 5.5 steps that way, 5.5 steps that way. Pace back and forth. And I started doing some walking because I could walk. Blevin sat there. And they communicated most of the time, because the guards were always trying to catch us early in the morning, but at nap time, there was a nap time. The guy rang the gong again. I never paid no attention. It was after they fed you in the maybe 11, then nap time, let's say from 12 to 1, where everything was quiet and you were supposed to lay down and pretend like you're sleeping. And then after nap time, the girl would open the thing and you get your water, and then sometime after that, open the door and take your bucket out, and Wendell, who was in good shape, would just take the bucket out, dump it in a shithole, and come back in and put it. Feed you again in the afternoon, and shut the door. And that was it. That was the day's routine, unless they took you out for interrogation or something. So the best time for communicating was when the Vietnamese weren't trying to catch you doing something. It was nap time. So that's when you tap to the wall. So now that there was a bunch of us, if the guy who was communicating, either me or Wendell, who was bedridden with a broken leg, could lay your head on the floor and watch under the gap in the thing. So if you saw any guard's feet coming, give a little thump thump on the floor. Everybody jump up, pretend like we're little angels sitting there. So it was much easier to communicate and not worry about getting caught as long as there's a bunch of people doing it. Every day somebody was going to interrogation. It wasn't some days us in our cell, but somebody in our cell block was going, and they would tap the message out what they're asking. So if they ask you something and ask me the same thing, and you and I have a different answer, one of us is lying, right? So coordinating our lives, that I've always said that coordinating our lives was the most important reason for being able to communicate, because it didn't take a genius to figure out that you say one thing, I say another, one of us is lying. So coordinated lies work. Time flies by. Christmas came. Christmas went. I had no idea. When I went with those guys, I didn't know what month it was, but they were keeping close attention. So I knew it was December 25th, and it was Christmas. And we didn't get anything special for Christmas, I promise you that. Not that year anyway. Christmas went, and one day the door opened, and I think it was February, so I was captured in September, October, November, December, January, say February. I go up to the medic guy who's been squeezing this thing, and he stopped doing it, it was kind of healed. And I went into the medic shack, and they had a great big, and they cut my cast off. And it went, and it took some doing it. It was a thick cast. And they kind of broke it and took it off, and then there was still some bandage and stuff, and they took the bandage off, and there was a big lump of red meat. It stuck up about half an inch. It was part of my body, and I couldn't believe it. But that's how it healed, and they didn't seem surprised. There was a few infections on it, but they put some powder on it, wrapped a little thing around it,